Oh no! Now why is it getting harder? It should be getting easier the more I learn.
Wait till I get to the next one.
I'm gonna say it's a heterogeneous colloid.
It's a heterogeneous suspension.
Damn it!
So my question comes from Silas in the UK, and Silas asks, "What is soup?"
Oh no!
What is soup?
Are you asking me?
That's what he's asking. And he goes on to say, it should be simple, but almost everyone I know disagrees on the definition of soup. I feel like we're going to have to unpack that a little bit. And then he goes on to say, is the ocean soup? Is water just hydrogen soup? What is soup?
I'm thinking of that Arrested Development episode where Buster's like learning to fend for himself, much as I have been, and he's just got like a piece of ham in boiling water and he serves it. And they're like, what do you call this? And he's like, hot ham water. Somebody tries it and they're like, oh, it's so watery, but with a smack of ham.
Silas, if you are listening, and I hope you are, thank you. These are my favorite kind of questions because they are so ridiculous. And yet, in this case, there is an answer. I drilled down and I really got to the alphabet soup of this, figured it all out. And I'm trying to think of some soup puns, the Bisky Center. So, Julian, what is soup?
This is cheating to just offload it on me immediately.
Okay. Is cereal soup?
Oh, crap. Okay.
Right? Exactly. You don't have to answer, but just think about it for a second.
Okay. Let me try and think about what I think soups have in common based on soups that I can come up with, right? We've got things like, we got some minestrone.
Yeah, sure. Before you get too far on this track here, is spaghetti and meatballs soup?
I mean, no.
Why?
Well, okay. So first of all...
Okay, so Wikipedia says...
It has to be liquidy.
Right.
There has to be liquid,
Wikipedia's first thing, if you go there and you're like, what is soup? It says soup is a primarily liquid food. It also goes on to say it is usually hot or warm, but it can be cold or cool. It usually has meat and veggies with stock, milk, or water.
I think it has to be savory, right? Because the cereal question kind of blows the...
It might, but there are sweet soups.
Are there sweet soup? What's a sweet soup?
There are lots of different types of soup.
Okay.
So
and then
let me go with the people who know more than we do. People who cook.
The soup experts?
Yeah. Which maybe you think of the French when you think of cuisine and soup. So in traditional French cuisine, they have like subdivided the different types of foods and where they all fall, like in a big taxonomical tree. And they have clear soups and thick soups. Clear soups are further subdivided into bouillon and consommé. So they're just different types of soup. And I'll get back to this in a second. Thick soups could be things like purees, which would be a veggie and a starch, a bisque, which is typically a shellfish and a veggie, and cream, and a velouté, which is got some kind of main thing, veggies or meats or whatever, and then eggs, butter, and cream. There's also fruit soups, dessert soups, legume soups, like a peanut soup, and so on and so forth. So there are so many different types of soup. That didn't satisfy my interest in this question.
Your hunger or your thirst for soup knowledge?
Yeah, both. Although slurping soup apparently is rude depending on who you're talking to. So I found a book published in 1900 by Henry Smith, The Master Book of Soups, 1001 Titles and Recipes. Within this, Smith acknowledges there are thin and thick soups, but that soups fall into three categories, BCP. Under B, we get bisques, borscht, bouillon, broths, and bouillabaisse. Borscht, by the way, blood soup, now usually considered beetroot or cranberry. Under C, we get chowders, consommé, clear, and crème or cream soups. And then under P, we have pottage and puree soups. Pottage, by the way, is a thick soup or stew made by boiling vegetables, grains, and if available, meat or fish.
So wait, his entire categorization is solely based on like what letter people tend to use when they describe it?
I mean, so each of these are different things. So like a bisque, like I mentioned, is a shellfish mix with cream to thin it out, so it's primarily a liquid thing again. Borscht is primarily beetroot, cranberry, or blood, depending on when you're talking and what country you're in. Bouillon is, a different type of soup. Broth is a thinner version. Bouillabaisse is different, so they're all, it's sort of trying to create a taxonomy of what's in the thing that we're making, even though they're all considered soups.
Okay.
The thing is,
they're in the soup family.
Yeah, exactly. If you think of it as like a kingdom, phylum, class, etc., this would be under the family name of soup. And it's not all the way down to the species, I would imagine, because, there are all sorts of different kind of bisques. So maybe you have like a family of soup, and then you have like the phylum of bisque and the order of something, whatever. Like you could get crazy if you want. But 90% of soups fall under BCP. So you can do 90% of them that way. But Silas doesn't really ask about food. They ask about things that are non-food items. Ocean, the water being hydrogen soup. And so just like you were sort of getting at the top here when I asked you to literally answer my question, chicken noodle soup, it's a liquidy wet bowl with a bunch of stuff in it. The ocean is also a wet bowl with a bunch of stuff in it.
It feels a bit misleading, but
sure.
Technically not wrong.
Right. So soups, and they can be hot or cold, and the ocean would be on the cold side. So, yeah, sure, if you want to call it a soup, sure. But I think part of it is that it's cooked, but not all soups are cooked, so that can make it tough. I mean, the problem is, like with anything, the points are all made up and none of it matters. And yet, chemistry does have words for things like this. So we could go to chemistry. That's where I went next in my research to find out about how to explain what soup is. The kitchen is just a science lab where we take raw materials and we turn them into nutritious edible meals. So it's really a chemistry lab. And you can't even say like, oh, well, everything in your kitchen is food. And it's like, well, flour cannot be eaten without processing it and cooking it first, right? A lot of our food isn't really food until we add heat and time. The thing is, chemistry has words that help us answer what soup is. So in chemistry, you have everything, right? Everything in the universe. Then you split it into mass and energy, or matter and energy. So if we stick to the matter side, pretty sure we could all agree, soup, probably not energy, probably on the matter side of things. So if we further subdivide matter, chemistry has two different categories: a pure substance or a mixture.
Okay.
So a pure substance would be an element or a compound. That is further subdivided. So elements are one thing. Oxygen, just O2, that would be element. O is an element, right? Iron, just Fe, that's an element. And a compound is two or more things that are chemically combined. So H2O is a compound. NaCl is a compound. It's elements made into things. However, on the other side is mixture. And this is where we get to soup. A mixture is two or more substances mixed, but not chemically combined.
Okay. So water being a pure substance.
Right.
That's out as soup.
Yes. If you were to say pure water, what would that be? That would not be a mixture. That would be a compound.
Right.
However, what if I ask you if seawater, is that a mixture or a pure substance?
Definitely a mixture, because seawater's got dissolved sodium and chlorine in it.
Exactly. It's got all sorts of stuff in it. So then I've got a quiz here.
Oh, okay.
What about concrete? What is concrete?
Concrete's got to be a mixture.
Right. Mixture, for sure. Air.
Mixture.
Right.
Got nitrogen, got CO2.
Right.
Yeah.
We've got stuff in the air, too, like particles, dust.
Oh, yeah. Lots of stuff.
All sorts of things. Salad.
Mixture.
A cup of coffee.
Mixture.
In fact, most things are mixtures. So if we subdivide mixture into two more things, we've got homogeneous mixtures and heterogeneous mixtures. So under homogeneous mixtures, you also have things like a solution, which is two or more substances in a physical state. So like a perfect mixture. And then a solution, by the way, is a solvent with a solute dissolved into it. Seawater is a mixture, but it's really a solution. It's a liquid solvent of water with solids and gases as the solute dissolved in it.
And if it's getting into your boat, it's also a problem.
We're going to need a bigger boat. But what about bronze? Would you consider bronze a solution?
Well, bronze is an alloy.
It is.
It's, I want to say, copper and nickel?
Copper and tin. Really close.
Tin!
Really close.
Ah!
Yeah. So it's a solvent of copper with tin melted, mixed, and cooled inside of it. The thing about a solution is it's mostly one thing with a little bit of other stuff. So soda water is CO2 gas in a liquid. We use a lot of solutions in cooking. Vinegar is an aqueous solution of acetic acid. Baking soda is actually a specific thing. It's a NaCHO3, so that one's a compound. And then we have simple syrups like sugar and water dissolved together. Apple juice is considered a solution. Then there's heterogeneous mixtures, and this is where we get, again, back into soup.
So we're more soup-like.
More soup.
We're zeroing in on soup.
That's right. So we're slowly getting into soup. Within heterogeneous mixtures, which are mixtures that aren't uniform, there are two different groups as well. A colloid, which is a mixture where molecules do not separate on their own. So again, coffee, if you just leave it there, it stays coffee. That would be a colloid in the heterogeneous mixture. If you added something like milk into it, sometimes the milk's going to settle out, but probably it's just going to stay mixed in. And then there's a suspension, and that's where the molecules will separate out on their own. So think of oil and water, flour and water, non-homogenized whole milk where the cream floats to the top, natural peanut butter where the oil comes out of the mixture, salad dressings where you have to shake them. Basically anything in your fridge or in your pantry that says shake well before using is a suspension. So it's a within mixture, under matter, we've got the mixtures. Within the mixtures, we have a heterogeneous mixture, and then we have a colloid or a suspension. Now that we've gotten to this point, soup is clearly within the heterogeneous mixtures, probably suspensions. Things in the colloids are like butter. That is a colloid. Foam, a gel, an emulsion, a roux, things that are not going to come apart on their own, whereas like chicken soup is definitely a suspension because the chicken and the noodles and the carrots and whatever are going to come out of it. However, if you think about it, the broth is actually a mixture of water and chicken stock and little teeny bits of chicken and salt. So you could argue that that is a colloid with a suspension in it, which is where this gets really complicated. So again, quiz time. And you get a bonus point if you can get all the way down to whether it's a colloid or a suspension. You ready, Julian?
Oh boy, I did not study. Okay.
Regular, natural, squeezed orange juice.
With pulp, I assume?
Yes, just like squeezed out of an orange.
Okay, heterogeneous suspension.
Perfect. Yes, it will separate over time. Granulated sugar.
Granulated sugar is homogeneous.
Sorry, that was a trick question. It's a compound.
Damn it. Minus 2 points.
Yeah, minus 2 points. How about regular old milk?
That would be it's heterogeneous, and I'm gonna say a suspension.
It's probably a suspension. Even homogenized milk you should shake it before you, just in case things have settled out. What about mercury?
This is a pure substance.
That's right.
This is
another trick question.
Yeah,
and the reason I throw that
I'm
in
getting
there.
Wise to you.
How about black tea?
This is a heterogeneous colloid.
It's a homogeneous mixture solution. Because it's ideally you've stirred it up enough. In reality, Julian, you're totally right. But how chemists like to think of it as similar to like a black body, like you were talking about. If I've made tea, I've stirred it up so that it's evenly distributed perfectly within that, as opposed to reality, which is some of it's hotter than others. We had it in the microwave. Some of the water is slightly different temperature. You know, it's not going to uniformly mix. But it's a homogeneous mixture is what chemists like to think of it. And it's a solution because it's...
I'm too pedantic is my problem.
Yeah, you're being very pedantic, which is good. I prefer that. This one I think is really neat. Smoggy air.
Based on everything that we've talked about, I'm gonna say it's oh no, now why is it getting harder? It should be getting easier the more I learn.
Wait till I get to the next one.
I'm gonna say it's a heterogeneous colloid.
It's a heterogeneous suspension
because
the soot will eventually come out of that.
That's what
mixture.
I meant. Shoot.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay. Now we're gonna do the bonus round. These are the hardest. A chicken egg.
My brain is like seriously cramping so hard right now. I can't even tell you. Heterogeneous.
Yes.
Are we including the yolk?
You know, I don't know.
Suspension.
It's a colloid.
God damn it.
Or so according to this professor who I found, and they listed this as colloid. But I think that the chicken yolk is probably not. I don't know, because it's not going to not be a yolk anymore, right? It's still going to be a yolk. Okay, I think I'm done torturing you.
This is harder than I thought
That's very
it was going
hard.
to be.
However, it's easier, I think, when you have all of the options in front of you. It's probably tougher on a podcast.
I kept forgetting what a colloid was.
Yeah, the colloid, it's easy to
which one's the
remember.
suspension?
A colloid won't separate, and a suspension will separate.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I don't have a good mnemonic for it yet. But something like a computer chip could fall under this as well. A computer chip is a heterogeneous mixture of a variety of different things, even though it's a solid, and it's a colloid because those molecules aren't going to separate on their own. Dirty seawater was on something I saw, which is actually a homogeneous solution of H2O with gases dissolved into it, and then solids as well, like NaCl, with suspended solids that can sometimes come out so some of it's a colloid, some of it's a suspension. It depends on how you think about it. So let's bring this all back to Silas's question and wrap this up.
Okay.
Where would soup fall within that group? If you think about all of these different categories, it's clearly matter, right? It's clearly underneath that group. It's a mixture of matter. And then
I would hope it's matter.
Yeah. You could have energy soup, I guess. I don't know.
Just energy soup.
Yeah. Maybe if you're a fourth dimensional being or something. I don't know.
Oh.
And then you further divide that into homogeneous and heterogeneous. It's probably heterogeneous, but it doesn't have to be. Some soups are homogeneous. You have like a jus, which you could consider a soup, or a consommé, which is probably more heterogeneous, and things are going to settle out of it. So it could be either way.
Gazpacho.
Yeah. Gazpacho is closer to almost a solid because it's not even cooked. It's just cold blended. So if you think about it, soup would probably fall into at least mixture. We can all agree. However, soup is not chemically combined, which I think is sort of something that trips people up. Even Googling this question and seeing other people talk about it, some people talked about it as like, well, I've cooked it. Isn't that a chemical change? And chemists don't consider it a chemical change. If you cook soup, what you're really doing is evaporating the water out of things. You might be causing some chemical changes within the things inside, but you don't all of a sudden make something that's not a carrot. It's just got less water in the carrot. It's a little looser. Maybe you've changed the state of the fat from a solid to a liquid, but that's still just a physical change. You didn't make carrot noodles. They're still carrots and noodles. But if you burn it, like you caramelize it, then you've chemically altered it, and that chemical change isn't going to come back. So a soup is a heterogeneous mixture, probably a suspension of food, which is essential to the definition of soup. It has to be edible. So water, as we've discussed, is not hydrogen soup because, do you know why, Julian?
Well, it's just a pure substance.
That's right. It's just a compound. So water cannot be hydrogen soup any more than salt is a sodium chlorine soup. It's not. It's just a compound. So water molecules, because they're chemically combined, cannot be soup. However, if you put something in water, that might be a soup because now you've made a heterogeneous suspension or in a mixture. Science uses things like primordial soup for early life, particle soup for early universe, and so on. But the term soup is used to describe essentially heterogeneous mixtures, right? Like we're creating essentially, without even thinking about it, we sort of know that soups are things like this. So maybe scientists should just adopt the word soup for some things in chemistry, right? Like right now we have to say, oh, this thing is a heterogeneous mixture of particles, compounds, and other substances. So why don't we just call up the American Chemistry Association or something and say, we should just call this soup from now on. That should just be the term. So like seawater is soup, smoggy air is just soup.
I couldn't help but notice, though, from your original definition, that cereal is a heterogeneous suspension.
It is.
So are we calling cereal a soup? Is that the only criteria for soup?
So here's what I came up with. All het mix suspensions Heteromixture.
All of them.
All het mix suspensions of particles,
Across
compounds,
the
and other
board.
substances are soup. All of them.
Okay.
Why not?
Wait.
Why
wait,
not?
Wait.
Why not?
Wait. Trace, behind you is a litter box.
Yes.
It's got litter.
Yes.
It's got cat urine.
Sure.
It's got cat poop.
Right?
That sounds like a heterogeneous suspension to me.
Yeah.
Is that cat poop soup?
Sure. Why not?
Okay.
I mean, it's not primarily liquid, so we might be able to add a definition that it has to be mostly liquid. But hey, why not? If a technically a computer chip or bronze is a heterogeneous mixture in a colloid, then that would maybe not be a soup. Only the suspension side would be soup. But, you know, that's not going to settle out on its own, so that would make it a colloid. So I guess I'm going to say not soup.
I think we're being too generous with our soup parameters here. I think by this definition, most of the universe is soup.
Why not? What's wrong with that? Paint is soup. You know, cocktails are soup, although beer and wine is a colloid, so not soup. It has to settle out on its own. Otherwise, it's not soup. It has to be a heteromix suspension. So like,
is a galaxy soup?
is it going to settle out on its own?
I mean,
given
got
enough time,
stars and planets,
because gravity is going to change how it works. I don't know. It depends on anything. I don't know.
Galactic soup.
Yeah, maybe this is one of those like relativity to describe big things or whatever. This is only describing things in certain sizes.
I think soup has to be made by people with the intent for consumption.
Got it. So not in your mind, not all heteromix suspensions of particle compounds or other substances.
I think particle soup is just a metaphor, and we can't read too much into it.
Okay. Is blood soup?
Okay, crap. That is made by humans. Well, I mean,
it's not
is it made for consumption?
Yeah, it's different. I hear what you're saying.
Prepared by humans for consumption. I mean, a borscht, though, like you said, is a blood soup.
Yeah. So would blood sausage be soup?
But it's gotta be liquid.
Aha. See, so
Right.
I would say blood sausage isn't soup because it would be a colloid. It's not going to separate on its own. There's no real answer to this question, right? What is soup is very specifically a food product that humans prepare, right? And cuisine-wise, we have all of these definitions of what soup is. Silas asked kind of almost a physics-adjacent question, like, is the ocean soup? Sure, Silas, why not? It's a heteromixture solution of a variety of different things suspended within water.
I'm imagining a loophole because of my definition where it has to be human prepared of a person taking like a single cooked fish and throwing it into the sea and I'm like, there you go, now it's a soup.
All of the ocean is now soup.
Ring the dinner bell.
It's a very salty soup that you should not consume. Again, I love these kind of questions because not only because there's no answer, but it shows us that everything is made up, right? There are so many of these debates. Is a hot dog a sandwich? Sure, why not? Who cares?
This actually what it really reminds me of, and I think it's appropriate considering my wife is currently off studying evolutionary biology, but it reminds me of a lot of the bones that, people who don't necessarily understand biology pick with like the definition of a species and speciation. Because what's important to remember about like what we call is a species or whatever is we are the ones who made that up, right?
Yes.
The same way we made up what is and is not a soup.
Yes.
And there are things that blur the line, what is and is not a sandwich, right? And at a certain point, it's just like you can't get so hung up on the terms that we ourselves created.
Yes!
We do our very best to define it and make it clear, but there's gray areas that you're just going to have to learn to recognize and accept and work around. It's true in biology. It's true all over the place.
It's true in everything. Here's the thing that I wrote, and I love you. That is exactly where I ended up in this as well.
Oh, yay, friends.
I said, is a hot dog a sandwich? Sure. Are motorsports actual sports? No. Is cereal a soup? Sure. Why not? All of these are made up. Their words are all malleable. Taxonomy is complex, and things fall into one or more category or no category at all, and then we have to come up with a new thing or figure out a new definition like we are doing with planet. But so many people are so pedantic, and they get so caught up in like, oh, but you said it was this. And it's like, look, a hot dog is a sandwich because if you zoom out and replace all things with that, you can see that it's all silly and made up. Like, it doesn't matter. Don't be so precious about it. You remember in episode 19 when we were talking about whether a tomato is a fruit, and we were like, yeah, it's totally a fruit, but it's actually a berry. And like, is a chicken a bird or a reptile? It's a dinosaur, so it's probably, the answer is yes, I guess. And like, is an insect a crustacean? Yeah, probably. Like, sure. It depends how far you zoom out.
Silas, soup is anything you want it to be.
That's right, dude.
Just believe in yourself.
I think the real problem that I have with this question that I just want to talk to you for a minute, Silas, just you and me personally. Here we go. Just There's no one else listening. Out? Yeah, just take a second, everyone. In your question you wrote, it should be simple, but almost everyone I know disagrees on the definition of soup. Silas, who are your friends, man? How are you disagreeing on the definition of soup?
Wait. Tell them about this show, though. So they can listen. Be like, look, I know we've had some heated moments about soup.
We can all hate these two guys.
Here's an episode about heated moments and soup.
That's so good. Silas, thank you for asking your question. I really loved it. I really hope that y'all learned something about, well, chemistry and maybe a little bit cuisine, too. I'm hungry.